Ladies who married someone their family initially disapproved of? What made everyone finally fall in love with them? When I first met Neil, I wasn't even looking to date anyone. I was in that post-college phase of trying to juggle a barely paying job, student loans, and a crappy apartment with 2 roommates who never bought toilet paper. Neil was the opposite of what my family had always pictured for me. He had dropped out after a semester of community college, had a sleeve of tattoos, worked at a garage, and had a 6-year-old daughter, Charlotte, from a previous relationship. My family is solidly middle class but has this weird obsession with appearances. Not rich by any means, but they're the type to stretch themselves thin to maintain the right image. When I first mentioned Neil, my mom did that thing where she goes completely silent for 3 seconds too long before saying, "Oh, that's nice." Translation: I've already planned your funeral in my head. The first time I brought Neil to Sunday dinner was low-key traumatic. My parents' house isn't fancy, just a regular suburban 3-bedroom with outdated countertops they've been planning to replace for 8 years. But the way they acted, you'd think we were at Buckingham Palace and Neil had shown up in swim trunks. My dad kept asking these pointed questions about Neil's career goals, mega cringe, while my mom aggressively passed dishes saying things like, "I suppose Charlotte's mother is very young?" Neil handled it like a champ, answering genuinely without getting defensive, but I caught him wiping his palms on his jeans under the table. When my brother Tristan asked if Neil had plans to finish school someday, I nearly flipped the gravy boat. In the car afterward, I apologized so many times Neil finally put his hand over my mouth and said, "They think I'm not good enough for you." TBH, sometimes I wonder that too, but I'm selfish enough to keep showing up anyway. That was the moment I knew I was in deep. For the next 6 months, things were awkward AF. My mom would text me links to guys' LinkedIn profiles with messages like, "Sarah's son just made junior partner." My dad started every conversation with Neil by asking about gas prices, like that was the only possible common ground. Family events were a minefield. My aunt once asked Neil to fix her car at my cousin's birthday party because that's what you do, right? The first tiny crack in their disapproval happened when my parents' ancient water heater died during the coldest week of January. 3 plumbers quoted them $3K plus and a 2-week wait. I mentioned it to Neil, who came over that same night after working a 10-hour shift. He ended up finding a decent secondhand unit through a work contact, installed it himself the next day, and charged them only for parts. My dad tried to pay him more, but Neil just said he was happy to help family. The way my dad's eyebrows shot up at the word family, I should have screenshot that moment. Things still weren't smooth though. My mom kept making these weird comments about Charlotte whenever she came up in conversation. Stuff like, "It must be so hard for you dealing with another woman's child," or "Do you really want to start a relationship with that kind of baggage?" I finally snapped one day and told her Charlotte wasn't baggage. She was a little girl who loved unicorns and could already change a tire by herself. And that Neil being a devoted dad was one of the things I loved most about him. The bigger shift happened around a year in when my brother Tristan's basement flooded after a massive storm. Neil showed up without being asked, helped move everything, brought industrial fans from his buddy's construction site, and stayed until 3 a.m. helping clean up. The next morning, he came back with coffee and donuts for everyone and kept working. I overheard Tristan tell his girlfriend, "Dude's solid. Brianna could do worse." High praise from my brother, who usually communicates exclusively in grunts and memes. Little moments kept adding up. Neil remembered my mom mentioned wanting a specific hard-to-find plant, and randomly brought her one he'd tracked down. He and my dad discovered they both had strong opinions about this obscure 80s sci-fi show. When my grandma had surgery, Neil was the one who built a temporary ramp for her walker without being asked. When we got engaged after 2 years, I braced for passive-aggressive BS. Instead, my mom hugged Neil and said, "You're nothing like we expected for Brianna. Thank God for that." My dad actually teared up. Last week, my mom called to gossip about how my cousin's new boyfriend seems nice but lacks Neil's character. I nearly dropped my phone. This from the woman who once suggested I could do better than a guy with tattoos and a kid. Also doesn't hurt that Neil's the only one who can fix their Wi-Fi when it goes down, LOL.